When you look at the DMT experience and you look at its effect on the human mind, how much of you subscribes to the idea that what we're looking at is some sort of a chemical gateway?
Chemical gateway to
what? Whatever it is. To whatever that DMT experience is. That this is something that your brain has the ability to travel to. But, I mean, since we know that the body does produce this, and we know that it's possible for people to, I mean, I've never done it, but I know that people who do Kundalini yoga have apparently reported trip-like experiences that are very similar to a real DMT flash.
Mm-hmm.
So the mind has this ability to do this on its own. What do you think that is that something worth considering, that this is some sort of a pathway to a nearby dimension or to something that's around us all the time but we just don't have access to with normal neurochemistry?
You know, there's
is it too many what ifs or who knows?
No, I mean, there's so much in what you said where you have to go back and unpack all of these things. When we got excited about DMT, Terrence and me, in the late 60s, what led us to go to La Chorrera was that it seemed like a completely different order of magnitude than any of the other psychedelics. And we came to it really from a childhood that was steeped in science fiction. So we carried with us the idea, this really is another dimension. And it may be a portal to another dimension. And as science fiction nuts, we were totally okay with that.
Yeah.
And we thought maybe DMT was, and maybe it is. Or it somehow pulls the curtain back on something that's around us all the time that we don't see. But again, in thinking about these things, is it something that is entirely within the brain that it originates, or is it something is it like a lens that, or our eyes are covered with filters and DMT temporarily removes those filters? I think it's hard to know. I mean, I think maybe experimentally we could begin to approach this. Have you, and I think we really know. I think that's another thing about natural philosophy that's important that science is overlooking. And natural philosophy always remembers the limits of what is known, and science is a bit arrogant about what they think is known. Science only understands a small fraction of all there is to know. And ayahuasca and other psychedelic always remind me of this. When I take it, remember the limitations of your knowledge. Or sometimes it more or less kindly says it. Right. You don't know shit. And it's true. We don't know shit, and scientists can forget that, But as far as this DMT thing, this is actually, there's controversy about this because, a lot of people who have worked in this area say it's pretty well established that endogenous DMT can produce these states, that the pineal can secrete DMT under certain circumstances or under stress. The lungs can produce large amounts of DMT that are translocated to the brain. But it's not so clear that goes on. I mean, it's clear that it can be produced, but David Nichols, who knows a thing or two about pharmacology, founder of the Hefter Institute, world's, most authoritative, highest authority when it comes to the chemistry and pharmacology of psychedelics. He's taken a reductionist argument on this that's kind of hard to knock down, which is that DMT is produced endogenously, but it's chopped up so quickly that it never reaches the site of action, and it never reaches the levels at the neuron that it would take to activate the neuron. So
even when consumed, or are you saying endogenously produced DMT?
Endogenously.
So that
it does when you consume it. Obviously, you flood the system and you get much higher levels than is ever produced endogenously. And
But we haven't really measured the levels produced endogenously during, especially these extreme states.
And that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem. How do you do that?
Have you done
How
it?
do you do that? What?
Have you done Kundalini and tried to recreate?
No, I haven't.
Me
done
neither.
It.
I haven't. Terrence had that fantastic joke. It was a talk about that this monk had practiced the city of levitation. Do you remember this one? And that the Buddha came to town and he said, for the last 20 years, I've practiced the city of levitation and I can now walk on water. And then the Buddha said, yeah, but the ferry's only a nickel.
Right.
So it's like, would you want to practice Kundalini for 10 years and bang your head towards the east, or just smoke DMT?
Smoke
and
DMT.
30 seconds later,
Right.
you're in the center of the universe.
But I think the last time I was on your show, we talked about this other thing, this ajna light we discussed.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've interviewed.
Yeah, we have to buy you one. I said we've totally dropped the ball on that.
You don't have to buy me
No,
one.
we do have to buy you one.
You want to buy yourself one.
I'm going to buy myself one and you one. This time we're going to do it. We said we're going to. I do too many podcasts. I forget everything.
Yeah, I know. I've never. But the ajna light is interesting because, he claims, and that was the conversation we had. He claims, yes, this stimulates endogenous synthesis of DMT.
I'm writing this down right now. Spell it out for me.
AJNA. Ajna Light. And his website is just ajnalight.com. And there's some good PDFs on there that'll explain what this is about.
Get on that, Jamie.
Yeah. And
Jamie's
now Guy
ordering two
Harriman
right now.
owes me big time because I just mentioned
All right,
this on
Guy.
your show. So.
Get it together.
Right. But anyway,
So this light can produce some sort of psychedelic experience.
he claims it stimulates DMT synthesis in the pineal. When you lie underneath it, it's just a bunch of, it looks like a floor lamp, with a rectangular mount, bunch of LEDs underneath it, which he programs with an iPad in different patterns. You lie under it, and it stimulates hypnagogic hallucinations
Look at him.
that are a lot like...
That guy looks like an old school freak. Look at him.
He's a Zen monk.
I bet he is.
Yeah.
Amongst other things.
He used to be an Apple engineer. He was
Really?
Steve Jobs' right-hand man when
Wow.
next
He went the right way.
he went the right way.
So he's got this thing. Is that cord going down to her head? I'm having a hard time seeing what's happening. Something's wrapped around her head. That better not be a crystal.
I think
I'll
that's
fucking run out of this
I think
room.
I think it's a deceptive thing. He didn't attach anything to me when I was
it's a
on it. I
perspective
think it's
issue?
the cord going
Okay.
behind her head.
Oh, I see.
So you lie under this thing,
Mhm.
and the first time I lied under it, I thought I got all these colors, I got all these hypnagogic effects, and nice patterns and all that, like a subthreshold DMT experience. And I said, well, the LEDs are all changing color, right? And that's how I see it. He says, no, they're white. The colors are coming from you. You're supplying the colors. So, okay. So it was interesting, and then we got into the conversation. How do you know this is stimulating DMT? How do you know that's the effect? Turns out it's not so easy to nail that down. Because DMT is so ephemeral in the system, you can't take urine samples or cerebral spinal fluid or anything. It would be gone by the time you did it. So the only way, well, maybe not the only way, but one way you could do it is you could do something called, it's essentially, you couldn't do this to a human because you couldn't get a FDA approval for it, but you could put a microcapillary tube right next to the pineal that will absorb things as they are released, and then you could recover that and say, levels of DMT are higher.
Why couldn't you do that to a voluntary participant?
Voluntary or not, you'd be
Screwing their brain up?
well, no, not necessarily, but you'd have a hard time getting permission. There might be. You could do it to a rat, though.
Oh.
You could do it to a rat.
Well, that's what Cottonwood Research Foundation's done, right? They've done that. That's how they discovered DMT in the pineal. Didn't they do that to a live rat?
Yeah. That's how they discovered it.
That was the first proof, right?
That was the first proof. Nick Cozy, who's a pharmacologist at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, he was really the first one to show that DMT is endogenously produced. Now, it's a sigma-1 agonist as well as a serotonin agonist, which is another receptor, and that's definitely that, but it's not clear what the function is. It's a complicated issue, to figure this out. I'll send you a paper that Nichols wrote, or I'll link you to a video where he discusses this. And it's like, he gave that at the Breaking Convention conference last summer that I was at. And it was like, he was like the big downer of the conference, right? Because everybody has this romantic idea, and he comes along and just squashes it, and it's like, man, you've disappointed a lot of people today. But on the other hand, reality is good.
Very good.
Facts are good. What Guy did do that sort of made me think maybe there is something to it. He's tried pre-dosing with an MAO inhibitor. Just take Banisteriopsis T without the admixture about 30 minutes before going under the light. And then it's much more intense and it's much more prolonged.
You've done this?
I haven't done it. But he claims that, and other people say that it definitely enhances this. So that would indicate that the breakdown of DMT is being inhibited.
Is he claiming that you could reach actual DMT states with this device upon practice?
Yeah.